Hey team, so today's topic I want to discuss how to get sub 3 hour 30-minute marathon pace to feel more in control. And 3:30 marathon pace comes out to 8 minutes per mile or 4 minutes and 58 seconds per kilometer. And so anybody that's trying to run 3:29:59 had better have their head on straight. It is a very difficult time, very aggressive, competitive marathon time. That a lot of athletes worldwide are trying to run. And again, the faster you're trying to run this distance, the more that's going to be required out of you. I talk about how important it is to focus more on the quality of the training that you're doing and not so much the volume. Yes, you do have to be consistent when it comes to marathon training, but again, it's a process that doesn't happen overnight. To sustain 8-minute mile pace for 26.2 miles or 458 kilometer pace for 42.2 straight kilometers takes an enormous amount of hard work. It takes proper planning. That's why I continue to stress the importance of thinking outside the box. You know, don't get so hyped up about how much volume you're doing, because if you're running too much of your volume far too slow, it's going to be very difficult for you to sustain sub 3 hour, that sub 3:30 marathon pace that you're aiming for. So again, if you're running 100 miles a week and 95% of that volume is run at 10-minute mile pace, it's going to make you very strong endurance-wise, but in terms of your strength and stamina, your ability to handle higher amounts of lactic acid buildup and being able to clear that lactic acid faster than it's building up, it's going to be very difficult because you're still training at too low of a heart rate and you're running at too aerobic activity. You're running too aerobically. So you have to stress the body enough and sufficiently. I talk about in the running courses that I teach and the training plans that I've created, the importance of doing one VO2 max workout per week. That's when you're doing the speed training, the hard, aggressive, extremely tough workouts, the speed development type workouts like repeat miles on the track, repeat 2 miles. Those are the same types of workouts I was doing to run 2:19:35. There were times where I didn't have athletes to train with, and I was out there on my own. I knew the specific paces that I was going for. In your case, you got to get that 8-minute mile pace or 458 kilometer pace to feel easier. So you have to train at paces that are closer down toward 6:30 mile pace or closer down toward 3:45 kilometer pace. Again, the faster you train at, the more efficient, the more economical you're going to be able to race, because again, you're teaching the body to burn fat at race pace and to conserve what you have a lot less of, which is carbohydrate. We only have around 1,700 to 1,800 calories at any given time built up in our bodies in glycogen storage. So a lot of times athletes that are trying to run at 3:30 marathon pace are doing a lot of incorrect things in the race and in training as well. So we work in the running courses, in the training plans, and especially in the private running community where we work through these obstacles. We find out what the athlete is doing in training. One of the biggest things for me too is to definitely find out what is the background of the athlete. What is the longest long run they've done? What pace are they doing their tempo runs at? How fast are they running on their easy days? Because these things will help me help you as the athlete to get better results by correcting those leaks in your training that has been giving you issues in the past. Because there's a lot of athletes around the world that are trying to run 3:30 marathon pace. They're working hard. They certainly are not lacking in the motivation or drive department, but they still are not able to sustain that sub 3:30 marathon pace for the entire distance of the race. And a big reason for that is simply they're running too low of a percentage of their weekly volume, far too slow. They're running more toward 9 to 10 minute mile pace, or maybe around 6 to 6:30 kilometer pace in training for too high of a volume, too high of a percentage of their weekly volume. So that has to be corrected. The best middle to long distance runners are running any closer up toward around 40% of their weekly volume at or below goal race pace. So you have to do longer tempo runs. A 3 to 4 mile tempo run might be great for a 5K athlete, but it's not going to build that strength and stamina that the athlete that's training for us to sustain 3:30 marathon pace for 26.2 miles or 42.2 kilometers. 3 to 4 miles is simply not enough. You know, that's a great workout for a miler or a 10K athlete, but for a half marathoner or for somebody that's trying to run a full marathon under 3 minutes or 3 hours and 30 minutes, that tempo run has to be lengthened out. So that's the process we work through in the private running community, in the running courses and the training plans. We have a plan in place where we focus more on getting the athlete to adapt to 3 to 4 miles first. And then as the athlete adapts, and that usually takes anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, then we start moving into longer tempo runs. We do one VO2 max speed workout per week as well, where you're running at significantly faster pace than 3:30 marathon pace. And there's a reason behind that. Again, you want to teach the body to burn fat at race pace, conserve carbohydrate, and to call upon and recruit more fast twitch muscle fibers. The more fast twitch muscle fibers that you can recruit, the more efficient your muscles are going to function throughout the race. We also focus on, too, looking at the other variables that a lot of athletes are missing. One big mistake I see a lot of runners making, and I've made it in the past too, earlier in my career, is they're running far too aggressive too early in the race. They're not hydrating well in practice, and they're not taking in enough fluid and calories in the marathon race as well. So there's a lot of things that go into sustaining 3:30 marathon pace. Okay, there's a lot of athletes around the world that can run several miles or several kilometers at this pace, but far fewer that can sustain it for the full entire duration of the race. And that is what I want you to be able to do, thinking about these types of workouts. So, you know, when we talk about mile repeats, you have to get to a point where, you know, if I was going for a sub 3:30 marathon and a sustained 3:30 marathon pace, I would want to focus on getting my mile repeats, doing 5 to 6 1-mile reps on the track at around 6:30 to 6:32 per rep, with eventually, when I have adapted to these types of workouts and intensities, I would want to be able to do 6 of those with around 60 seconds to 90 seconds rest in between each one. Very aggressive. You have to be extremely fit to focus on doing intervals of that speed with that little bit of rest. So early on, when you're not as fit, you know, I would focus on doing the mile repeats right around 6:55 per rep, and I would give myself probably around 3 to 4 minutes rest early on when I'm not as anaerobically fit. So there's a method to my madness in terms of being a consultant and a coach for athletes online. We don't just jump into long tempo runs. We don't just jump into doing faster paced long runs that I talk about in other videos. You don't want to run every single weekend fast and long. Okay, it's a quick way to become very stale, and you can't continue to push the body hard anaerobically and expect a very high, return on your time investment. So you have to train smart. And again, that's the key concept behind RunDreamAchieve fitness consultations and this philosophy that I have here. We want to train smarter rather than harder. It's not about the volume you're putting in. It's about the quality of the work that you're putting in. So if you're focusing on doing repeat 800, so that's the types of workouts in terms of getting that 3:30 marathon pace to feel easier, I would focus on doing 10 800s when you're very fit at around 3 minutes and 15 seconds per interval with around 90 seconds rest in between each one. Again, that's when you're all the running plans and running courses that I have on RunDreamAchieve.com are 16 weeks in length. So early on, you're not going to be doing 800s and 3:15. Okay, we may start off, running those 800s at around 3:35 per interval, and your recovery might be around 2 minutes rest between each one, or 3 minutes rest in between each interval, as opposed to doing those at 3:15 per rep and only giving yourself 60 seconds to 90 seconds rest in between each one of those repetitions. So again, it's a gradual process where we teach the athlete to do the correct workouts first, build first and foremost, build that aerobic base that the athlete needs to be able to sustain, eventually handle these harder anaerobic workouts that we're talking about here to get that sub 3 hour marathon, 3 hour, 30-minute marathon pace to feel easier. You have to also focus on doing all the other things that go into running great over the marathon distance. Proper pacing in the race is key. You do not want to go out the first half of a marathon at an hour and 10 minutes, okay? You're not, even if you're trying to run that fast in the first early stages of the first few miles or the first few kilometers of your marathon, you're going to be either having to drop out the second half because you went out far too aggressive, or you're going to be jogging or walking the rest of the way. Okay, now I've made that mistake in the past too, so I understand. You know, I remember, for example, I went out at the 2007 Grandma's Marathon. I went out in 1:10:31 at the first half marathon. I was at 2:28 marathon pace through 20 miles. I think it was a little over an hour and 53 minutes. I ended up running 2 hours and 40 minutes for the marathon, 2:40:02, which was a personal best at that time. But I had to work and eventually slow down in the early stages of the race before I was able to eventually run 2:19:35. It took time. Okay, so always focus on doing a negative split as well. Okay, if you're going to run a sub 3:30 marathon pace for the entire distance, focus on running that second half faster than you're running the first half. That is very, very important. So you definitely want to be passing people in the latter stages of your marathon rather than being passed by other athletes. So that is very, very key. Do not neglect mental rehearsal. You have to see yourself running 3:29:59 repeatedly, 10 to 15 minutes each day. See yourself running at the high level that you're dreaming about. You know, see yourself getting across the finish line with 3:29:59 or faster on the clock. You know, spend 10 to 15 minutes. The best time of the day really to do this is either right before you're going to bed at night, or when you're first getting up in the morning. You know, spend some time mentally rehearsing, going over, you know, training your subconscious mind to do what it is you're going for, and that is to run 3:29:59 for the marathon distance. So if there's anything else that I didn't cover that you need a little bit more specifics about, please feel free to leave me a comment below. Definitely share this video. Give me a like if you can. It helps the channel grow and more athletes to see this video. And definitely share it. Hopefully you have friends or family that maybe are trying to run a sub 3:30 marathon, and that would like a little bit more either private coaching with me or may be interested in a running course or a training plan. So I wish you all the best in your training and your preparation. I definitely look forward to hearing about your sub 3:30 marathon, and I will talk to you in the next video.